Hey, this is Sasha Evdokov, founder of TradersFly.com and InvestingHelpDesk.com, here to share with you some insight about trading, investing, and the stock market. Now, in today's video, what I'd like to do is share with you some common questions that people ask me. And today's question is, how do you factor in overnight action for the next trading day? Are there any clues to how the next trading day will move? So the simple answer to this question is yes, there are some clues and things that I watch. Now, I'm going to share with you some insights here right now in this video about some of the things that I watch. But keep in mind, these are just a fraction of the things that I watch because really I look at a few other things and I look at things from a bigger perspective. So I will shed some light on it right now and give you some insight. But keep in mind, these are just simple examples. And then if you get examples that are a little bit more tricky or stocks that are a little bit more tricky to diagnose or detect, then it'll be a little bit more difficult. So you'll have to get good at what skills and things I share with you here in this video lesson. So why don't we hop on screen so I can show you exactly what I'm looking for and give you some insight, and we'll just do one or two examples, and maybe that'll help you give you some insight to the overnight action. So looking on screen, here's what I really look at. So first, looking at a big picture screen, I'm looking at the overall market picture and what's going on with the market. So typically, I don't look at just the overnight action. The overnight action does help somewhat, but I really look at the daily action. The daily action to me is more important. So when I'm looking at it here right now, you can see I'm looking at day-to-day action, and you can see that right here, we've had some daily action that's been lower volatility. And when you look at it right here, there's higher volatility. So as I look at this, I'm looking at the day-to-day action first. Then I'm looking at the stock itself. Okay, so as I look at this stock, which is Apple, I'm looking at how that stock has moved recently and the day-to-day action. So looking at this, here's some clues and insights that you'll get from it. So as I look at this stock, and let's just break apart this bar right here and look at the movement within this bar. So as I'm looking at this bar, I notice that it closes at the highs. Okay, we open up at the lows and we kind of close at the highs. It's not at the tip of the highs, but it's near there. It's near those high prices. And then when I look at the volume bar, okay, I look at that volume bar is also picking up. It's picking up in a big way. If I look at it in the moving average, so you could see the moving average right here is the 20-day, which is there's 20 trading days in a month. Okay, so that's why I use this white line right here. There's 20 trading days in a month. You can see it's much higher in the monthly terms. So you get this reversal effect. Okay, so the next day, what I would expect is because of this end of the day price action, I expect the same thing to happen because overall, remember what we're looking at, the bigger picture of the market has been that it's, really heading to the downside. It's been heading lower, from this bar to this bar to this bar. The only good bar we had was this one bar right there. On that upside because of the volatility. But overall, we've been heading really lower with higher volatility. But this stock has been still heading higher. So when I look at it and I'm looking at this one bar right there, I'm going to see still a positive movement even though the market has been heading lower. And the previous day, the market, again, was acting weak. The market overall, we know, has been acting weak. But as I look at that previous day, what happened at the highs? The stock came up into those end of the day levels and it closed towards the high with higher volume. So the next day, we see again more volume picking up. We see the price action fairly good. Now it starts to get a little more extended, but what do you see? You see higher volume and you see good price action. So the stock is behaving well. The previous day, you had, again, open at the lows, close at the highs, exactly what you want to see. Then the next day, again, what do you see? Higher volume picking up. We open up, we get higher prices from the previous day, and we close towards the highs. We're, again, not at the tip of the highs, but we close near those highs. So again, what do we expect to happen? We expect the follow through. Again, we open and we're continuing there. Now, this day still has not ended, but you also have to take into account how the price action is moving. The other thing I'm taking into account is how overextended a move is, because remember, stocks become overextended. So you can't have this move go too far too fast. You can't have it moving to the upside, let's say, in a straight bullet point. Okay, instead, a nice angle would be good. So even this angle would be a little too extended. Here, this is going to be too extended at some point, and you'll probably see a pullback, coming back into this moving average level. But overall, for multiple days, you can see follow through. So that's the first thing. The next thing I'm also watching is the bigger picture moves. Okay, so if I'm looking at support and resistance lines right here, you could see again, we're clearing that resistance level, and that's another thing to take into account. So more than likely, you'll see follow through. So those are a few quick picture views. Now, if I look at Facebook and I'm looking at this concept again in Facebook, there's a few areas where you could take a look at this. So let's just backtrack a little bit so we can look at it on the downside and just see how it looks. Just because with Apple already we've went to the upside and it was a little bit easier to see with the volume, let's look at a little more difficult example. Like here, for example, just as a quick rundown, you can see this stock became a little too far extended from the moving average, which was over here. We topped out, so we get a pullback towards the moving average, and you can see the volume picking up to the sell side. But here, let's look a little bit further and just look and see if we can pick up the next day and what's going to happen over the next few days when we don't get any very, very clear signals. So here I'm looking at Facebook stock, and what I'm doing is I'm seeing, okay, this stock became overextended. We created massive movements in that stock with high volume. So the extension is real. There's your pop. Okay, so now we get a little bit of resistance, and this stock is coming into some resistance right here. We also have a support level that got built right here by this level. So again, now we have some support level right here. So that's kind of our initial setup and situation. And as you take a look at this and you see that support level, you're seeing this bar as we come in right here, that bar right there, you can see that that stock is closing towards the lows. So let's see if I can zoom in even further into this. So here, let's just take a look. And you can see now that right there, that bar is closing at the lows. We're pressing down, and you can see the volume is starting to pick up. It's not more than the moving average, but if you look at the last few bars, it was less than the moving average. So what's happening here is we get a very dangerous red bar that's picking up in volume, picking up in speed. So, and we're closing at the lows. So it's testing that level. If it came in with even more volume, you would probably have seen it break, and it would be an extension of that. But it would also be a lot easier to spot. This one was not as easy to spot. So then what you see next is you see that break. There's that break, and it broke right here, even gapped down, continued to follow through, closed almost at the lows, not quite at the lows, but look at the volume of that price move. So that price move continued. So when you get such an extension too far below that moving average, if you look at it, you'll probably get a little bounce. So we get that little bounce, but overall, right here, stock is acting weak. And in fact, if you really look at it, this stock has been kind of acting weak since right here. We've had this topping effect. That's the behavior. It's because I'm taking in account the other prices. So then as we get into these next levels, and I'm trying to evaluate what's happening the next few days, I'm looking at this now being my resistance level. Okay, so again, looking at the chart, you're looking stock price closes towards the lows, volume still pretty high. Okay, so the volume's still fairly good. This one, this bar, stock price closes at the highs. Okay, so they brought it back, but could it be short covering? You still have some volume. Then again, you have more volume coming in on the sell side, volume picking up even heavier, which tells me there's selling action. Again, at least for the short term. The bulls will try to bring it back, and that's what they do to retest this level. Again, this is the key level. But if they can't do it, then look what happens. Then we get the break. So now I wonder, during this bar, what will be the next day price action? So we open up at the lows. We close not at the highs. We close in the middle. But what happened throughout the day? So if you watch this bar, okay, and you look at it, we open at the lows. We attempt to get into the highs, but then we start selling off towards the rest of the day and we close in the middle. Now, we don't continue selling, but then what do I expect to happen? Well, we open now. If we look at it, now we open right there, just a little under that closing price, and we get that follow through because this had large volume and we get a follow through with large volume. And that's why from this bar, you could see what's going to happen on that next bar because it told you, even though it didn't close at the lows, it told you that the stock opened here, tried to get here to the highs, rejected those highs, closed right around this level. So then the next day action, because of that volume, was going to follow up the same way. Now, when you get into lower prices and it becomes favorable away from that moving average, you'll get that snapback, and that's what we got. So you can tell that these things and these motions, especially at critical points in time, okay, like these levels right there, you could tell about the stock from this point to the next point, and from this bar, you could project the next bar. So that'll tell you some more clues and insights to how the stock is behaving. If you get more volume like you do with Apple, it's pretty easy to tell. It's a lot more clear picture. Most of the time, you don't get that clear picture. So sometimes you do on the sell side. So even here on Apple, you'll see right here, we get a bar, moves down, closes at the low. So what do we get? Continuation, volume picking up fairly majorly. So I expect prices to continue moving lower even for the next few days because of the large amount of volume that's coming into that stock. So that's typically how I'm watching and looking at these price levels as I'm evaluating stocks. I'm not just looking at overnight action or what happened in Europe. I'm looking at the day-to-day action because that's going to tell me a lot more. There's a lot more shares traded at those price levels or at during the day than just overnight. So, of course, overnight action, the futures, they can move the stock. But if you put together the bigger picture, multiple weeks, multiple days, support and resistance lines, that'll tell me a lot more, as well as how that stock moved throughout the day. That tells me some insight of what's going to happen to the follow through. Now, one key point you want to keep in check is overextension levels. Too much to the upside, you'll probably see it come back. Too much to the downside, you'll probably see it snap back. So those are some things and keys that I watch, and I hope this was helpful. And if it was, and you want to see more videos like this one, go ahead, check me out at investinghelpdesk.com, where there's other frequently asked questions on video. Now, my primary website is tradersfly.com, so take a look at that website because it has a lot more resources on it. If you want to get on the newsletter list, then click this button right up here and you'll be taken to the sign up page. And on the newsletter list, I send out some free trainings, discounts, promotions that I don't usually do that frequently. So make sure to get on the newsletter list if you want to stay up to date with me. Or of course, you could watch some more training videos right here on this side of the page. So thanks again for joining me. In the end, remember, do what you love, contribute to others, but most importantly, live life abundantly. I'll see you next time.